So human design boils the human population down to four main types: manifestors, generators, projectors, and reflectors. There are two kinds of generators: manifesting generators and pure generators, but I'll get more into that later. Each of these types has a particular strategy for living that can enhance health and well-being, as well as minimize resistance and emotional suffering. Each type is designed to surrender to something, which I love because it flies in the face of what we're all taught. And honestly, this is one of the biggest gifts you'll receive from learning about your design. The fact that you are here to surrender. The fact that there's actually a way to break free of all of those shoulds that you've got running around in your head all the time, trying to determine who you are and what you're supposed to do. A way that actually feels fun and exciting and playful and different and experimental and really unique to you. So while it's always good to have an evolving vision of yourself and the intention to make a loving, positive contribution to this world, you actually don't have to have a clue about where you're actually headed in order to get there. And I cannot tell you how much of our time is wasted trying to figure all of that stuff out. So one of the biggest things to really get is that everyone is here to surrender. Everyone, even the ones we call manifestors, are here to surrender. They're here to surrender to freedom. Generators are designed to surrender to the now. Projectors are here to surrender to the other. And reflectors are here to surrender to existence itself. As John Lennon would say, life is what happens when we're busy making other plans. And that's actually how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to be including a wonderful article below written by Richard Rudd, one of my favorite people in the world, such a wise man. And I'm doing that as part of the teachings for this week. And in it, he describes this surrendering process for all of the types and explores the four types as representatives of four paths to enlightenment. So definitely check that out if you feel interested. Okay, so back to me, back to Jack. Okay, so I'm a generator, a manifesting generator, which will mean much more to you as we move through this week's teaching, with a particular kind of truth-telling device that's extremely intuitive and spontaneous. So time and time again, I have found that through surrendering control and surrendering to the now, really good things have actually happened in my life. Service has happened, love has happened, authenticity has happened, connection and exciting collaborations have happened, just naturally. And all I've really had to do is just kick back and enjoy the ride, because that's what we're all designed to do, to surrender. And it doesn't matter what kind of type you are or what exactly you're here to surrender to. No matter what, letting go of the mental control factor is likely to be a really healthy thing for you. And of course, sometimes inspiration does require a strong intention and sometimes a lot of effort and prep work. I mean, this program isn't very easy for me to figure out. And thank God I have my husband to help me out with it. You know, a lot of things require planning. And sometimes I really turn into like a ravaging pit bull wrangling with the beloved toy, like I've needed to do just to do this. But the toy is beloved. It has to be. And that's the key. You know, if I'm not engaged with something that I love, something worth the wrestle, if I can't feel some wind at my back, whether it's in the form of inner excitement or outer support, then I'm just pushing the river. I'm trying to force myself to go where I'm not built to go, or to be someone that I'm not built to be. And then I get lost in molding and shaping and playing God with my life instead of trusting that there's a much higher intelligence at work inside of and all around me. And that I play my humble role best. I make the greatest difference when I get out of my way. Right? And I let go. And this is the greatest irony of all, is that even manifestors aren't as in charge as they seem. Manifestors are those great initiators and doers of our world. And I share a lot more about them in the next section of this week's teaching. But for now, all you need to know is that even though they're the people whom, for whom the Just Do It Nike commercials are actually meant, and even though they're the kinds of people who can really watch a movie like The Secret and look like they're just running with it, they're still not in control. My husband, Kim, is a manifestor, so I really know something about this. It's interesting because according to the research done by Human Design into the world population, only 8% of the entire world population are actually designed to be what we call manifestors. And what this essentially means is that there are relatively few people in this world who are built to manifest in the traditional sense of the word. These people can actually, or at least it can look like they can actually get an idea and then go out into the world and make that idea happen. So manifestors are here to go out and do something, to make an impact based on something, whether it be a want or an impulse or a feeling that originates from within them. They can initiate things, they can start balls rolling that other people can then respond to or join. But this is the thing, if you look at manifestors more deeply, you're going to see that even they aren't manifesting anything that truly originates from their minds. Because no ideas appear in the mind without first coming from and through the body as some kind of a response to a complex environment. The whole concept of the mind knowing anything first, of being some autonomous, rational source of power and authority that functions independently of the body, of emotions, is an illusion, a concept that's been equally challenged by both spiritual as well as scientific thinkers. So my husband Kim has the kind of design that would drive him crazy if he tried to manifest every great idea that entered his head. I'm serious. He actually spent the bulk of his life trying to do that, and it actually did drive him crazy, and me too. So most of the time, he has no clue about what he's meant to manifest until after a really long period of time. And what he ends up manifesting rarely makes sense to his logical mind. Because of his particular design, it's usually coming from a deeply emotional place, and he's never in charge of the timing. It just happens when it's ready to happen. But then watch out, world, here he comes. But still, not all manifestors are slow percolators like Kim. And there are some people, not many, who can at least seem to have that kind of control and power to just go out there and make things happen, even quickly. And they can have an experience of knowing what they want first and then going out and doing it. But what about the rest of us non-manifestors? Now I'm talking 92% of the human population. The rest of us, whether we're generators or projectors or reflectors, are really not meant to do that. We're not really built to drum up a dream, pursue it, and make it happen in a linear way. We're not meant to just know what we want off the top of our heads. The majority of us are actually designed to respond first and then act. Although the specific way we respond and act can differ a great deal depending on what type we are, where our authority is, and how we're uniquely designed. So a while back I was watching The Daily Show, which is a comedic news show in the United States, and Jon Stewart, who's the host, was interviewing an author who wrote a book that explored the question, why are human beings so terrible at predicting what will make them happy? Though, unfortunately, I can't quite remember the title of that book, I do remember being really struck by the question. If you really think about it, how many of us think we know what's going to make us happy, and then even if we manage to manifest it, we don't end up happy at all, or at least not for long. And in that way, you could say human design is a lot like practical Buddhism, at least for some. Very similar to many of the profound Eastern teachings that have gained popularity in the West over the years, human design really points to the potent connection between the nature of the mind, the act of desire, and the experience of suffering. Even though human design doesn't prescribe the same spiritual practice to everybody, the experiment of living as one's unique self, of honoring one's strategy and authority, are indeed practices. And while each person's practice will look quite different on the surface, at core, everyone is learning the same essential lesson: to watch the mind, to disidentify with its contents, to hold it lightly enough to resist getting caught in a never-ending cycle of wanting what the mind wants, achieving or not achieving what the mind wants, and being temporarily happy or unhappy, and then wanting that next thing that the mind wants, achieving that next thing, and still being temporarily happy or unhappy. So in a very real way, you could say that human design is like a new Zen, especially for the generators of the world who make up about 70% of the population. And that it's really here to help so many of us just get out of that vicious, desire-driven cycle. And it does so in two ways. One, it discerns between two kinds of success. The kind that comes from getting what you want, or at least what your mind, which unfortunately more often than not represents your conditioning, has you convinced that you want. And this is the kind that rarely brings about true satisfaction or long-lasting fulfillment. The second kind of success comes from getting the life that you're meant to have. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is fine and dandy, or that you're happy all the time, or that everything works out just perfectly. I'm sure you've had experiences that weren't necessarily comfortable or obviously successful, but you knew and felt at some really deep level that those experiences were good for you. That you did the right thing because you were able to really milk the experience for all it was worth, or you learned something valuable, or you were really authentic in yourself in the process, so you would never have it any other way. Now, maybe it was a relationship, or a job, or an experience, or just a period in your life when you moved through some deep and difficult feelings. But again, there was something about those feelings or experiences that felt right, that were right for you. No blame, no shame, no regrets. This is what we're talking about in human design. So the goal here is not about perfect success according to the eyes of the culture, the new age, your coach, parents, siblings, teachers, your friends. It's the kind that actually leaves you feeling deeply satisfied, fulfilled, and at peace, full of trust and happy to be who you are, with your good days and your bad days, your happy moments and your not so happy moments. It's the kind of success that doesn't just look great on the outside. It doesn't feel like slavery on the inside either. And if generators can feel like anything, they can really feel like slaves because they're such hard workers by nature. And projectors who have such trouble knowing when enough is enough can end up feeling like super slaves. They can be super successful slaves, but slaves nonetheless. So the other thing that human design does is put people in touch with that part of them that they can trust to make decisions for themselves, which is called their true authority. And then it shows them in a very concrete way how they can honor that authority. So it doesn't just say, let go of the mind, meditate and be still, and then you're going to know exactly what decisions to make. Given how long it can take us humans to reach and maintain a state of mental non-attachment and peace, this isn't always a very practical goal. Besides, the mind isn't just going to go away. It's not going to stop its thinking or its planning or its scheming, which may not even be such a bad thing after all, because in the end, we actually really need our minds. We need them to witness and measure and discern and to accumulate and ultimately share wisdom. Ultimately, our minds are meant to be wonderful outer authorities. They're what allow us to become such gifted teachers for other people. It's just that our minds are not supposed to run our own show. So really all human design does is take that decision-making power away from the mind and restore it to its proper place, to our own authority, wherever that happens to be for each of us. And it shows us a really concrete and practical way to work with our unique authority. This way, as we move towards meditative enlightenment, if that's what floats our boat, we can still manage to navigate through the everyday of our lives with integrity, greater ease, and a good dose of self-love.